Welcome to the Cake Academy podcast, the podcast for cake makers who want to raise their standards, price with confidence, and build a business that actually works. I'm Cheryl, cake business coach and founder of Cheryl Bottomley Cake Academy and Tier & Co cake management software. And each week I'm going to be sharing honest conversations, practical strategies, and real industry insights to help you move from simply making cakes to running a profitable and sustainable cake business. So if you're ready to stop undercharging, stop second guessing, and start building something stronger, you are in the right place. So let's get into today's episode. So welcome to episode number 8, where we are going to be talking all about email marketing. Now, in episode number 6, we talked about the different visibility channels that are available to cake makers, and I mentioned email marketing as one of the most underused tools in a cake business. And today I want to give it the full focus that it deserves, because I genuinely think it's one of the most valuable things that we can build into our businesses, and most cake makers are not doing it at all. So let's talk about what email marketing actually is, why it matters, and actually what to send and how to get started. And I'm going to share with you exactly what I do for my email marketing and how I've set mine up. So the first thing that we're kind of going to look at is why email marketing is different from social media. And you may already know this anyway, but basically when you post on social media, you are at the mercy of the algorithm. Your post might reach 10% of your followers, if that. It might reach fewer, it might reach more, we don't know. You've basically got very little control in terms of who sees your social media posts and also when. And if the platform changes or your account gets restricted, or you simply go quiet, as we've talked about in episode 7, your visibility does drop. Like, there's no getting away from that, it does. And I think one of the things that I really want to hit home is you do not own your social media. I mean, I've seen recently so many accounts or so many cake makers that have lost their accounts, and some of them have had like thousands and thousands of followers. Now, hopefully those ones where, unfortunately they have been restricted, that they have had email marketing. But it is really, really frustrating. So with email marketing, it is different because your email list belongs to you. No one can take that away. There's not really any algorithm that decides who receives it. And every single person on that list or on your email list has actively chosen to hear from you. That for me is so important, because those are people that are reaching out, and what I kind of call what I actually call my hot leads, because they've actively reached out and joined your mailing list. So they've chosen to hear from you. They're not strangers that are scrolling past your content. These are people who already know who you are, and they've said, yes, I want to stay in touch. That's a completely different kind of connection, and it's one that is worth building. I cannot stress that enough. So there are a number of email marketing platforms out there, and I've tried quite a lot of them myself, but the one that I use at the moment and that I recommend is Flodesk. And the reason that I like it is it's very creative looking for our businesses. And it's genuinely really easy to use, and it produces some really beautiful emails using templates without you needing to design anything, or you don't need any sort of like design experience. And if you're just getting started with email marketing, Flodesk is really accessible place to begin, really. And you can find the link, if you want to have a look at it, in the show notes, where you can check out the current pricing and the current plans and all, everything that there is to do with Flodesk. So if you want to, just have a look at the show notes and just click on that link. So you're probably wondering, how do I actually do it? And how would you do it without it taking over your weeks? Because you might not have heard this, you might have done, but what you might have heard is you need to be emailing every single week, and oh my god, it's just another task that I have to do. So what I want to do is share with you how I personally use email marketing in my own business, because I think it might surprise some of you, or it might not do. Obviously, I don't want to be teaching people how to suck eggs, but I'm going to tell you the way that I do it for my cake business. Now, the first thing that you need is a reason for a potential customer to actually join your mailing list. And the way that I do it in my business is that I promote my e-brochure, which has a lot of information in there for customers to understand the journey of booking their wedding cake with me. So obviously I only do wedding cakes, I don't do celebration cakes. And I have basically created my e-brochure in Canva, okay? Now, you don't have to have an e-brochure. You could make other things, such as you could do something like a cake table styling guide or something like that. And it's just thinking about what your customer actually needs. So, you know, even if you don't do like wedding cakes and you do celebration cakes, have a bit of a creative moment and think about, okay, what is it that they would want? It might be a flavour menu, something like that. No, and what you can do is start getting creative and designing something on Canva where you can download that as a beautiful PDF. Now, I do not sit down every week and manually write and send my emails. I do not do that, okay? What I've done instead, because I'm very time poor, as a lot of us, you know, I've got a family, I've got my cake business, I've got my cake academy, you know, I'm very busy doing school runs and all that kind of stuff, as a lot of us are. So I literally don't have time to sit down and write an email every single week. I don't, because my other side of my business is very busy as well. So what I've done instead is set up what you call an automation inside Flodesk. So what that actually means is when a potential customer basically asks for my e-brochure, and they do that, and you've probably signed up for a load of different things yourself, they do that via what you call an opt-in form. So that the opt-in form is basically where someone inputs their name, their email, and for my case with the wedding cakes, they'll put the date of the wedding. And when they put that information in and they click send, that goes into the back end of your email marketing platform. So what then happens in the background is they will go into my specific automation. Now, obviously I cannot teach you how to set all this up in a podcast. But what happens is they will go into that automation, and basically what that means is those customers will receive a sequence of emails that I have written in advance, and I've got around about 22 weeks worth. So from the moment that someone signs up, they're going to receive regular, valuable content from me without me having to do anything in that particular moment. It's basically running in the background while I'm getting on with everything else. I'm baking my cakes, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. You know, obviously in my like content, I do promote my e-brochure, and I promote my e-brochure on my website as well, because that acts as like the top of the funnel, because I am wanting, as we've talked about before, social media is basically the top of the funnel, and I am driving those potential customers to my email marketing or to my email list, so then that I can nurture them further from there via my weekly emails. So can you see how, you know, if you've listened to some of the other podcast episodes, how everything kind of comes together in a bit of a strategy, or a lot of a strategy. Now, this is one of the things that I love most about email marketing, because when it's set up well, you basically do the work once and it just keeps working for you. And it's the kind of system that supports your business without you having to be constantly switched on. Now, I am going to be honest, obviously 22 emails in my case, it does take a little bit of time to set up in the beginning. you need to write those emails and you need to build that sequence, but once it's done, it's done. And that return on that investment of time is significant. And then all you need to do is check, really. I mean, if I'm honest, obviously I've got that email automation set up for about 22 weeks. All I do literally every year is I just go through those emails and just check that they are still relevant. Now, I don't need to go into my email marketing system to do that. I use something called Airtable, where I use it for all of my business, and I basically have all the emails written in my Airtable account. So it's a little bit like Trello, kind of. So I could just go in and have a look. Are they still in date? What I'm saying, is it still relevant? All that kind of thing. And if something isn't, I'll just then tweak it and go back in and into my email marketing system and make those changes. So yes, it can take a little bit of time setting it up, but it is well worth it. What I just want to talk about is something that most people do not think about when it comes to their email list. So when someone signs up, they're not just a passive subscriber. They've actively sought you out. Like I said at the start, they've seen your work somewhere. So it could be social media, it could be a website, and they've been drawn in enough to give you their email address, and they want to hear from you. You know, it's not a casual connection. It's I say a warm lead. I call them my hot leads. So alongside my automated email sequence, I also put in another touch point. So what I will do is, when I can see someone's joined my email list, I will also personally reach out to that new subscriber as part of my follow-up process. So if someone joins my list, I treat that in a similar way to receiving an inquiry, because it's an opportunity to start a conversation and find out what are they looking for, and then let them know what I offer. I mean, it might be, just as an example, it might be that I've currently got some cake sample boxes available. So I might reach out to them and say, hello, such and such. I've noticed you've joined my mailing list. I've got some cake sample boxes available at the moment, or do you want me to provide you with a quote? I've got your wedding date free, all that kind of thing. Now, obviously, if you haven't got their wedding date free, you don't have to do all this. It's up to you how you do it. So I want you to just think about, if someone walked into a shop, okay, and picked up a leaflet and gave you their contact details, you wouldn't just file it away, would you? You'd follow up with them, and your email list should be treated exactly the same way. Now, I obviously have Tier & Co cake management software, and if you're already using it, you will already know that you can manage your inquiries within the software. And what that means is, like I was just saying, in terms of doing that extra reach out, every time someone joins your mailing list, you can add those new subscribers into the software system, so you can track all those conversations and you can set those follow-ups with those potential customers. And you've then got everything in one place. So it doesn't matter whether, you know, a customer has sent you a specific inquiry via your inquiry form, or they've sent you an email asking if you've got the cake date available. You can add these as well, so nothing gets missed and every warm contact is followed up properly. And it's a really practical way to stay connected via your email marketing, because it's part of your inquiry process, and it's something that not all cake makers are doing, or they might not be doing this whatsoever, okay? But the ones who tend to find that they do this, it generates bookings from people that they might not have ever, you know, they might never have really spoken to them otherwise. So if you're starting from zero, here is where to begin. So past customers are a natural starting point. Okay, so if you're doing something like celebration cakes, you know, you might get those sort of like year after year. If someone's already ordered a cake from you, you know, they're going to trust you, and they may well need a cake again in the future, or they might know someone that does. So your website is another, and a simple sign-up form with a reason to subscribe. So like I've said, so your e-brochure or similar gives the visitors a reason to stay connected beyond their first visit. So for example, I have like a little pop-up that comes up on my website saying, do you want to download my e-brochure? They can put the details in. So wedding fairs are a really, really good opportunity. So having a sign-up sheet or a QR code at your stand basically means that you can collect emails from couples who've spoken to you and like what they saw. So even if they're not ready to inquire at the moment. So when I do a wedding fair, I take my iPad with me, for example, and I have my opt-in form. And it's my normal opt-in form. It's the same one that I have for, that's on my website. Well, basically it's a duplicate because I like to know or track where those inquiries are actually coming from. That's a whole nother thing in itself. But anyway, so what I do is when I take my iPad, they can add in their name, the email address and the date of the wedding. And then what happens is they go directly on my mailing list into that 22-week automation. But it's a brilliant way to stay in touch with them. And straight away, within sort of like half an hour, they get that first email and they get my e-brochure straight away as well. And they'll go, like I said, they'll go through my weekly automation. Now, your social media audience, as we've sort of like touched on before, so letting your followers know that you send regular emails and giving them a reason to sign up is a simple way to move them from that platform that you don't own onto that list. So let's talk a little bit about, so what on earth do you put in these emails? How are you writing 22 emails? So with that email automation doing the heavy lifting, you still need to know what to write. So I want to kind of keep this podcast quite practical so that you can walk away with some actions from this. Now, when I first did this, I literally just sat down and I wrote a list of all the things that you can talk about that's cake related. And I promise you, you are going to come up with a lot. So I want to give you some examples. Now, you can pause it at this point, or you can finish listening to the podcast and you can come back and do it after. But I promise you, you will come up with loads. I mean, I came up with, oh gosh, I think there were about 50 different like things that I could talk about, and I just thought someone's not going to stay on my email list that long, so let's just keep it at 22. But to give you some examples to start you off, you might want to talk in one email about your booking process. Another email you might want to talk about the different cake stands that you hire out and what does that hiring process actually look like. Another email you might want to talk about the different favours that you do and how, you know, you're treating your guests. Obviously, don't just write that I do favours and this. You know, you want to give them a feeling and you know, what do they want for their guests. Another email specifically could be about the different flavours that you have on your menu. You then might want to talk about the types of cakes that you make. So do you have like some cakes where you create that have got different textures on them, different styles, so semi-naked cakes versus iced cakes? What cakes are best in the summer versus the autumn winter? You could have another email on using fresh flowers versus sugar flowers. You might do something on awards that you've won. You could do another email about the suppliers that you work with. Another one about cake table styling, or you could do one about where to place a cake. Honestly, there's so many ideas. I could just reel off like loads, but I will let you do some of that work because obviously everyone's business is different. Now, if you are also doing things like celebration cakes or I don't know, treats and bakes, you might make like seasonal treats and bakes. So letting your list know that you've got a limited number of slots for Christmas, for example, or that wedding cake inquiries for next summer are now open. You know, you could do those as like kind of like one-off emails that you do actually sit down and write in that particular week, because what that does when you're talking about things that are kind of like time bound, if you like, you're creating that sense of urgency and it gives people a reason to reach out sooner rather than later. You also could think about like answering common questions, so very similar to probably what you would do in your social media. So if you get the same types of questions from inquiries regularly, an email that addresses one of them clearly positions you as the expert as well. You could showcase some of your work, like, I don't know, a popular style that you've been experimenting with, a wedding that you really supplied cakes for, a celebration order that you're particularly proud of. You know, there's loads of different things. You know, the key is that each email gives the reader something useful or interesting, and it doesn't have to be really long. It just needs to feel worth opening. Okay, so like I said, building an email list does take time, and you're not going to have like hundreds and hundreds of subscribers overnight, but every person that does join your list is someone that, you know, has actively chosen to stay connected with you. And like I said, it's warm, it's owned audience that social media cannot replicate and no algorithm can take away. Now, don't get me wrong, you could drop into the spam folders, but once you kind of set up and you're getting established with email marketing, that does become better. And what I would say is, when you then combine a well-built automation that nurtures your list consistently with a personal follow-up process for new subscribers, you basically have a system that is both passive and proactive at the same time, and it runs in the background, but you're also paying attention to the people that it's bringing in as well. So if you are not doing email marketing yet, set it up, start small, set up a Flodesk account, create a simple sign up form, add it to your website, add links to your social media bios, write your first few automated emails. And this is what, I'll be honest, this is what I did when I started it as well. So I didn't write the full 22 weeks email in one go because it was just too much. I've been sat there for about 4 days. I think I did about 5, like 3 to 5. And I just put them in the automation, but I just set in my calendar, right, I need to do some more, because as people started dropping in, but then it'd give me a few weeks to get those emails done, if that makes sense, because I might have had like 3 weeks. So I'd put something in my calendar to say, right, the next 3 weeks, and to the point when I had them then done. So yeah, so that makes it a little bit less overwhelming, if you like. And they don't need to be perfect. You can get started, just get something put together, and then at a later point you can go back in and tweak them. You can go in and change them. It really doesn't matter. So I would absolutely love to know if this is something that you set up. If you've got any questions or you want to make a comment at the bottom of this podcast, please do ask. And as I mentioned in the show notes, there is the link for Flodesk as well, so you can have a look around that. And like I said, any questions, please do ask, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cake Academy podcast. If today's episode gave you clarity, challenged your thinking, or helped you look at your cake business differently, make sure that you check the show notes below for any links, tools, or resources that's been mentioned. If this episode helped you in any way, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with another cake maker. You can leave a rating or you can write a review. These simple actions make a real difference and help more cake makers find practical, honest guidance for building a stronger business. You can also watch the full episode over on YouTube, where I share the full conversation and any visuals that supports today's topic. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.